Hello, Lazio all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. It's not a good Monday, and unfortunately, it's not the first of the season. It's becoming annoying, Alasdair. This is not the first one. Um, Lazio lost a derby. We didn't play that bad, Alasdair, but you cannot allow this type of mistake to happen because it's gonna cost you the derby, right? Lazio performance overall wasn't that bad, but usually it's not the team that plays better that win the derby. It's the one that is more focused, more concentrated, more willing to win the game. And definitely Lazio wasn't that team yesterday.
Yeah, like you say, I think avoiding errors is just as important as creating moments of genius, and I predicted a 0-0 draw going into this game because I felt like with the time of day it was at, I mean, how hot was it? Oh my God, it was way worse than a week earlier. The fact, that both teams had got off to a fairly slow start with new coaches, both teams struggling to score goals. I just felt like it was going to go that way. It did go that way, but I did feel like, and I'm glad you've said that from the start. Objectively, once we step back from it, it was an improved Lazio performance on what we saw against Sassuolo. But you can't make those errors, and you really can't make those errors in these kind of games. And on top of that, you can't miss those chances. That's a thing we're going to come back to time and again this season because I feel like we're going to lose, points up and down the country. We're just going to fumble them out of our grip because of this inability to take the chances we create. And so we saw again yesterday.
I'm really annoyed about Diaz's performance because I'm pretty sure it was the first time starting, and you're starting in a derby, and you know that playing or scoring in a derby can change your season, right? If Lazio win with the Diaz scoring the decisive goal, everything is different for the player. And I thought he played poorly. He played like I'm all under and I'm playing a friendly game with friends and I don't care less about the game. I mean, we're gonna talk about what he missed in the second half. But in the first half, where Rovella runs on the right, he's jogging. He should be running to get as soon as possible inside the box because that ball that Rovella puts in, if he's fast enough, it's an easy peasy goal, right? And instead, he's jogging and doesn't arrive on time. Diaz's performance is unacceptable. And, Castellanos, we said it, he's not a number nine that's going to score a lot of goals, but at least he's fighting on every single opportunity, every single ball, etc. Dia isn't, and it's not acceptable at this point, right?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised you pointed out the Ravella cross chance first and not the obvious one. It's a good point though, actually. But yeah, I mean, if you're clean through on goal, I thought he actually showed really good pace in that moment because when he first broke through, I thought Mancini was going to catch him, but he got away from him. And he dribbled the ball well to not knock it too far ahead, give Svilar too much of a chance. He gave himself the time to set himself. He did everything you basically need to do as a striker in that moment. Have the pace to get away from the defender, keep the ball under enough control that you're not giving the goalkeeper a chance and putting yourself in a position to be able to set yourself for the shot. And oh my God, what a bad finish. I couldn't believe how far off target it was. You got to at least stress the keeper there. You got to at least test him. If he makes a save, he makes a save. But wow.
You're talking about the chance in the second half,
yeah.
not the okay.
But so for me, that was the biggest chance of the game because we had a couple of others. The Svilar made a good save on Zaccagni. There was Tati's chance that everyone in the stand I was in thought was in from the angle behind him, where he wrapped it around the far post. There was Cataldi, obviously, coming so close to a really memorable goal right at the end. So all these ifs and buts, Vittorio, it's and that in itself is an improvement because we saw hardly anything against Sassuolo. But it does just make me wonder, unless the club has got something serious lined up for January, I don't understand how we're going to fix this problem of not being able to score goals.
I don't think the club has nothing on January. So let's take out that out of the equation. The problem here is that we don't score. And yes, against Roma, we created chances, but we have to finish them. And the other thing, Alasdair, let's talk about it. Roma's goal, it's unacceptable in such important game. And I have to tell you this, before the Roma's goal, I was talking to my son and saying, hey, Tavares is playing like he's really doesn't care. And I cannot accept that. He's not Paolo Maldini. He was terrible when attacking and also when defending. And this is something that someone has to fix. I mean, Nuno Tavares, Dia, they were all playing like, this is not a key game. And this is too bad, even because, again, we are not talking about incredible players, right? Tavares, last assist was October of last year. It's nearly 1 year. So,
Wow.
that mistake is simply unacceptable. And then afterwards, he complained with Zaccagni, saying, hey, you didn't give me the opportunity. That's terrible for me.
It's a shame because I think that one of my kind of hopes coming into this season was that Sarri could find, a way of balancing Tavares as a player, a way of taking off those edges and making him less of a winger and more of a fullback. Finding a way of exploiting those attacking abilities, that speed, that power, while making him more responsible as a player within the system. I think we've seen a bit of that. Like there have been moments actually where he's defended quite well or tracked his runners, made interceptions and things. So I don't think the mistake yesterday means we need to give up on him entirely and write him off. But it's a difficult one to understand how you can make that mistake and not just play it simple. Everyone, I imagine in that situation, is just screaming, get rid, just do anything, but don't lose the ball in that situation. Roma were trying to press high and trying to put pressure on us there to force those mistakes. It was almost like Roma's attacking game, their strategy was more to try and force those errors than to try and create themselves, because they didn't have an awful lot of possession in the final third, but they did try and put a lot of pressure on us when we had the ball at the back there. And I think it worked, and it's probably a strategy that other teams will try and follow, because I do think that we try and play it out from the back a lot, and we don't necessarily have players we can always trust to do that effectively. So that's probably something else for Sarri to think about as well. Something certainly for Tavares to think about. And that's all it takes in a game like this. And it's a shame because Sarri had such a great derby record. Regardless of the poor start to the season, I think taking a point and seeing that performance yesterday would have at least given us something to build on. I don't know if you agree with that, but even a draw and an improved performance, you would have come away at least saying, there's something there, there's a platform. But getting a third defeat in 4, it just is pretty deflating, to be honest. And it's already been such a tricky start to the season with the protests and the transfer ban and everything else. And now it's just a pretty despairing time to be Laziale, I think.
So on Monday you will start Nuno Tavares again, because I mean it's the whole game. and it's not the first one, when he really looks like he doesn't care. I'm not talking about tactics, etc. It's simply like he doesn't care. I mean, that was the game, right? You're coming out a terrible defeat against Sassuolo. You didn't do nothing, nothing. And it looks like he left the stadium before everybody else. So, he had a little bit of discussion, as I said before, with Zaccagni after the goal. It's not what I want to see from a Lazio player. Take responsibility, take the blame, and try to do something. Instead, nothing, zero. It's true that Pellegrini came in and didn't do nothing better, but at least he tried.
Yeah, and Pellegrini came on at the start of the second half, and he was like running onto the pitch, kind of trying to g up the crowd. And he's a Lazio fan, so obviously he knows what it means and so on. I don't think you need to be that guy. I know Tati did a bit of that, Zaccagni did a bit of that at the point, the kind of waving your arms at the crowd to try and get a reaction. But and obviously it's fans like that, and it's nice to see that, and it's kind of showing that they're wanting you to back them and all the rest of it. But I don't think it's necessarily that you're asking from a player so much as showing the desire by example, right? I think that's more what you're talking about, rather than the body language so much as the actual effort and application on the pitch.
Can I say something? I'm annoyed by Zaccagni. I don't care if he does like that. He has to start playing football and stop showing up his hands. I mean, yesterday he was terrible and was coming down and saying, "Yeah, start playing football." You've been a disaster this year since January. The invisible man has been Zaccagni. So you don't need the fan support because it's already there. The problem are not the fans. The problem are the players. And Zaccagni should stop doing that and start doing something on the pitch. Start playing as a football player, because he hasn't. And again, yesterday, he's been terrible again. He didn't do nothing, nothing. And if your most talented player, I'm not sure about that anymore, doesn't do nothing, and then it becomes very difficult to score.
Well, he had a decent effort in the first half for a
Yeah,
squad.
but if you watch it again, the ball is this high. I mean, Villar probably could have deflected with the head if he wanted to. So, not sure. If we continue to give excuses to Zaccagni, this is what we're getting. I think Sarri should make a statement next Monday. Bench a couple of players like Nuno Tavares, like Zaccagni, and see if this have enough. I mean, Tati Castellano came in yesterday and looked like another player. He was really, really focused, really fought hard on every tackle, etc. Maybe benching had that effect. So let's see if it does the same effect on Nuno Tavares, Zaccagni, and so on.
Well, one thing I would say on Zaccagni is that he's very good at drawing fouls, and he's always amongst the most fouled players in the league when you look at those statistics. But I think he's learned to rely on that too much, in the sense that he often tries to get the foul rather than trying to beat the man. And he's got the talent to beat the man, and often he actually has beaten the man, but he'll still go down to try and get the foul, and he will. Obviously it can be incredibly useful to have someone who's winning you loads of fouls, so we can try and do something with the dead balls and so on. But I do feel that, and I was thinking this yesterday, sometimes he just needs to focus on actually using that, because he uses his body really well to spin off defenders and the rest of it. And there's little quick touches he does. But use that to get into that space, to actually create us some opportunities rather than to just win them. If you want to take pressure off and things like that, perfect. It's really useful. But we don't need to be looking at that every single time. So I do find that aspect of his game a little bit frustrating.
You're incredibly right, which is surprising. And we have to add something. we are not very good on free kicks, so we don't need 20 because we are probably not going to do nothing. We don't have Gigot anymore. We don't have very good headers anymore. Romagnoli missed a huge chance in the first half. So it's not that we are not like the Mourinho's Roma. You remember they were scoring every time on free kick. We are terrible. We are terrible on that. So instead of relying and getting a free kick, try to dribble past your man and shoot. Try to score directly because free kick are not going to help. So yeah, I'm pretty fed up with Zaccagni.
Well, sorry, I was going to say, to come back to your point of whether we drop him on Monday to make a statement and so on, I think the problem is, which we need to get onto as well, we don't have any players left on Monday. So, I mean, I see where you're coming from there, but I find it difficult to. I mean, I can see Tavares being dropped because he was hooked at halftime, and so that's basically being dropped already. But I can't see Sarri making huge changes, both because there's no midfield left, so I think he's going to want to keep as much of the rest of the team in place as he can, and also because the performance in general, like I said, wasn't terrible. It was something, but yeah, we have one midfielder left, Vittorio. You know, it's crazy how quickly things disintegrated there. I mean, just to summarize for anyone who's forgotten, we had Delibashiru limping off with an ice pack after 10 minutes. We had Ravella following him off, and we already knew he had fitness issues at half-time. We can maybe talk about that in a second. And then, 85th minute or so, Belayan stamps on the back of Kone's leg. And by the way, his tackling all day was terrible. And I was amazed he didn't already have a yellow card. So I don't know what he was doing. And then at the final whistle, Guendouzi gets a red card for dissent. So 2 suspensions, 2 injuries. We've only got 6 midfielders. One of them is Vecino, who's also injured. So good luck, Danilo Cataldi, because on Monday you are our midfield.
Yeah, this is incredible, right? The Guendouzi red card is unacceptable. And Belayan game, this is not the first time. He plays like 20 minutes and then disappear. So the bad news, Alice, is that rumors are that Rovella's requiring surgery. So he's going to be out, not for one game, but probably for a couple of months. So that's terrible news for us. We hope Vecino could be back. I mean, he should have been back the first game of the season. So I don't know what's going on there. But the funny news about all this, Alice, is that Basic not only is going to be reinstalled, but he's going to play on Monday because we don't have any other options. I mean, maybe we're going to play Hila from midfield, I don't know. But Basic and Cataldi are the only midfielder available at the moment, which, you know, makes you understand how bad this team is.
Well, imagine if Basic gets man of the match, scores two assists, and works his way back into the team. It would be like the greatest ever comeback from a Lazio player if he took advantage of this chance. I mean, at least Basic has been part of the team in pre-season, and you know he has been working with the team. It's not like we're bringing in someone who's been completely frozen out. So that's something. And look, he wasn't ever a terrible player. It was just that he wasn't what we were looking for. But the problem is he's not played competitive football for God knows how long. I cannot remember when he last stepped on a pitch as a Lazio player. So yeah, that's the problem. I think they're going to have to play a 4-2-3-1 for me. They're going to have to move Pedro to a 10 and do it that way. I can't see how he can play 4-3-3. I've already read some fairly outlandish idea of Zaccagni playing as a Mezzala and so on. But, I mean, surely we have to move to a 2-man midfield to make up for this. But, yeah, it's crazy. And Belayan, I mean, you said Guendouzi, it's unforgivable. I think it's a real lack of leadership from one of our senior players to make that kind of mistake. I was saying to you just before we came on, it seemed from the very start that Roma were trying to wind him up, and a lot of these little fouls, little kicks here and there, and it was working. But he managed to keep his cool right into the end, and for it to then lose it when he already knows so many midfielders have gone off. Belayan's, it was crazy what he did, really. He couldn't get the ball off Kone all day, and I think it just became frustration for him because the replay makes it look like it's not a clumsy mistake. It was actually pretty nasty.
I think Guendouzi is a negative leader. I mean, in this game, he loses temperature pretty much every time. I mean, you should be focusing, concentrate, and these are important games. And you are one of the most experienced, one of the leaders of this team. And this is not the first time you get a red card in a derby or in a key game. So, Guendouzi, it's a problem. If he's playing like that, if he gets a red card like this, it's problematic. You mentioned Pedro. Let's not forget that Pedro was subbed because he got injured. So I don't know if it's that bad, but Pedro got subbed. And Alasdair, I was surprised to see Noslin coming in instead of Isaacson.
Well, are we finally going to see our top scorer? I mean, you know, I've been obviously making a bit of a joke of this since you said it, but what I hadn't considered is Noslin might score like 2 goals this season, and that'll be enough to be top scorer. So you might end up being right, but not the way you thought.
So there's these stats, Alasdair, that it's incredible, right? Lazio played 4 games and scored 4 goals, so it should be 1 goal per game. But we scored only against Verona, 4 goals. So we didn't score against Sassuolo, against Roma, and against Como. So yes, we scored 4 goals, but it was all in 1 game. This is a terrible sign, right?
Well, yeah, and in contrast, Roma have scored 3 goals in 4 games, and they've won 3 games because they keep winning 1-0. And so it kind of shows at both ends it's not really working, because I don't think we're conceding all that much. You know, we're the Como game, we got battered a bit, but after that, it's not like we're surrendering loads of chances in any match, but we'll always give one up, and that's a bit frustrating.
I want to say this thing, and don't get me wrong, but as you were mentioning, it's not that the other team has 20 shot on targets and they score 1 goal. Against Como, they pretty much had 2 chances, 2 goals. Against Sassuolo, 1 chance, 1 goal. In the derby, 1. I mean, the Pellegrini shot wasn't easy, but it wasn't impossible. A goalkeeper of that level should be stopping at least once, make a nice save, right? An important save. Provedel is not doing that. Absolutely. I think in the last year, he never had a game where we can say, hey, Provedel made that save that was unbelievable. You can say that to Mandas. I remember against Venezia, in other games, Mandas making unbelievable stops. Not with Provedel. And this is costing us. 4 goals we conceded on 4 shots. That's far too much for a team that is not scoring that many goals, right?
Well, he made that save on Wrench at the back post. I mean, funnily enough, looking at some of the player ratings in the papers today, Provedel tends to be the one who comes out the best. I think that maybe says more about the overall performance than from him being an incredible star performer on the day. What actually frustrated me with him, though, was more his kicking than his than not saving the shot. You know, because some of his distribution was just terrible, and that's supposed to be the thing he's good at. There was a moment really early in the game, because Deli Bashiru was involved, where he seemed to be, he ran out of his box to kind of shout at Deli Bashiru. And it looked like, I couldn't tell obviously what was going on exactly, but it looked like he was kind of annoyed at his positioning for when he was taking the kicks, and he wanted him to be pushed higher up or whatever it was. And so he made this big scene of throwing his arms around, shouting. And then he went back to take the kick. He played it short and passed it straight to a Roma striker. And I was like, come on, man. If you're going to, start complaining about your teammates, you can't just give away the next kick. So I think that aspect was pretty poor. I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, I think in the first half he kicked 4 times directly out, and at a certain point I was watching around and say, "Hey, is Strakosha back with us?" I mean, that was typical Strakosha kickoff, right? Pim directly out, 2 meters wide compared to where the Lazio player was. Provedel is becoming an issue, honestly, because you're right. One of the reasons why he's starting is because he should be very good in distributing the ball. I thought yesterday he was a disaster. Again, I'm not saying we lost because Provedel didn't pass the ball as expected. But if you add up all these issues, Provedel assist, Dia performance, Nuno Tavares mistake, Zaccagni not showing up, etc., that's why we are in this situation. And Alasdair, we lost the derby, but most of all, we have 3 points in 4 games. Are we going to watch out and talk about relegation this season? I mean, Monday, there's a relegation fight, right? Genoa Lazio.
Well, interestingly, I read before the game, and I had to double check this because I was like, that can't be right. But this is actually the second time that this has happened in 3 years. So Sarri's final season started with 3 defeats in 4 games, 22-23. Wait, was that Sarri's final season?
Yeah.
So we lost to Lecce, Genoa, and Juventus. The game we actually won was against Napoli, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But, and then we came back and ended up finishing, 7th that year? Must have been 7th. We always finish 7th.
Yeah, with Tudor.
So I'm not saying that we shouldn't be worried about anything, but what I mean is it's a long season, right? So I don't think we need to be getting worried about relegation. But as I said last week, I think what we do need to be seeing is some sort of evolution of the team, some sort of tweaks and changes to suggest that an improvement is on the way. And that was the frustration in the Sassuolo game. It felt like a backward step. Funnily enough, despite losing a derby, I do feel like that was a better Lazio performance, and that actually 9 times out of 10 they don't lose that game. I'm not saying they win it, but they probably don't lose it.
I'm not sure. I mean, 9 out of 10 if you don't make that mistake. The problem is, we're making a lot of mistakes, Alasdair. This is the problem. But the thing I want to point out why I'm looking in that direction is, and we didn't talk about it, after the game, the Lazio players came to the Curva Nord, and they've been booed and sent away. Even against Sassuolo, we saw something. I think the fans are annoyed. Obviously, they are not happy about Lotito, but I think fans are seeing how Zaccagni, Dia, Nuno Tavares are playing, and they see that they're not giving everything, that they're not trying that hard to win games, etc. So, yes, transfer market blocked, Lotito is terrible, etc. But these players need to step up. They need to play. Otherwise, for me, Nuno Tavares can spend the rest of the season in Tribuna Montemario. He's not providing nothing, right? So, and this can be a problem, Alasdair, because if the fans start booing consistently,
I think that
is bad. If you add this, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, but fans have a right to boo. If you lose a derby, 3 defeats and 4 the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, it does make things even harder because I think that a lot of the fan frustration is obviously to do with off pitch stuff. with the ownership, with the way the club is being run, with the transfer ban. And sometimes that can lead to a certain kind of sense of unity and togetherness between the fans and a team, that you're doing this against all the odds and so on. We're just not seeing that yet, because I don't think this is a team that the fans have really come to love. It's not the Inzaghi team of old, where we had a Milinkovic and an Immobile, and even like a Patrick back in the day when he was like a cult hero. There were a lot of kind of players, Lulic, the rest of it, who the fans really had a strong rapport with. And I'm not sure there are many players in this team who, like I mentioned there with Lulic and Patrick, for example, you don't have to be the star player, the Sergei Milinkovic-Savic, in order to have that relationship. Like Felipe Caicedo, for example, is another good example. Just someone who the fans feel is giving everything they've got, and who absolutely loves the club and appreciates the opportunity they've got to be playing for the club. That in itself is sometimes enough to build those great relationships. But I struggle to really think of many players in this team who are kind of fan favorites right now. I mean, you'll get a better sense of that being in the stands, but who are the fan favorites in this team?
Pretty much, that's it. Guendouzi should have been, but I'm not sure after this derby. So, I don't think there are a lot of...
Pedro, I guess.
But, I mean, we cannot rely on a 39 years old player, right? That's the biggest issue we're having. And in Rome, there are a lot of fans thinking that Lazio had the transfer market block, that fans are against Lotito is a sort of alibi, an excuse for the players to not perform. Do you think this could be one of the reasons why they're not playing like that? They're not focusing, they're not playing great football? Or no, that hasn't got an impact on the performance?
Well, I do believe in the thing of like, it's important to refresh a team, and like when you're winning, you should always be changing, because you need to change to stay where you are. I do think there really is something behind that, and I do think that starting from scratch with the exact same team, it doesn't really give you that extra boost, that extra bolt going into a new season that you might need. But I do think also we need to remember this is quite a big coaching change. It doesn't feel as big as some of the other ones we've had, like Inzaghi to Sarri, or Baroni coming in and making us this ultra attacking team at the start. But Sarri his methods are very different to most other coaches, and it's something players talk about repeatedly. So I think they are getting used to that. I think we just would have liked to see that take hold more by now, because our whole thing in pre-season, when we were trying to be optimistic, was this team has got loads of time together. This team has got full pre-season together. Sarri knows the squad he's working with, but so far it's not really helped an awful lot. I do think the next couple of games are massive, because Genoa and Torino as the next two up, if they can't take 6 points from that, we're then going into games, I think it's Atalanta and Juventus. And, we can't, there's no reason we can't beat those teams, but they're going to be big games with big pressure around them. And I think that Genoa and Torino is crucial to just get some points on the board and to feel like we're evolving and we're going somewhere.
We need to win the next two games. That's a problem, because afterwards we have Atalanta and Juventus, and then we have Pisa. So there's another international break, which is unbelievable and incredibly annoying. But this team needs to step up. I think there's too many talk about Sarri. We didn't lose the derby because of the 4-3-3, about the tactics, etc. We lost because Dia missed an incredible goal and Nuno Tavares made a terrible mistake. This is it, pretty much. So I cannot accept discussion about Sarri and blaming Sarri for this. But Alisson, obviously, last year after 4 games we had all 8 goals scored, and now we are 4 only. So you can see that there's a huge difference in this team. But at the same time, last year we had Isaacson. Last year we had Vecino. We have, I don't know if I can say key players, but important players missing. And I think Vecino in a derby, Isaacson could have much better impact in the game, right?
What did you think about Cancellieri being dropped? And do you think that's going to be permanent now?
I think he has his opportunity and didn't take it. So, Sarri has one thing. If he gives you an opportunity and you take it, then, the doors are open. See Hila. He had an opportunity, he took it, and he became the starter. Cancellieri didn't impress me, to be honest with you. And the fact that Noslin came in instead of him in the second half of the derby, that's a big statement for me. And hopefully, Isaacson will be back. So I hope Isaacson is going to start against Genoa. Again, we need to find a solution for Zaccagni issue. And I would really wish Sarri gives Noslin an opportunity. Maybe if you're right that we're going to switch to a 4-2-3 and play Zaccagni as a trequartista, maybe Noslin goes going to have an opportunity on the left. But I think we need to change something. I really do. Obviously, the midfield will be completely new on Monday, but that's not our decision. It's due to the emergency situation. But I don't know. Nuno Tavares on the bench. Maybe try something else. Maybe try Isai, because I was hoping Pellegrini would have done something better. He was bad in the derby, right? So let's try Mazuc Isai and see how it goes. Maybe bringing back Proskat. I don't know. Change something. Genoa is not an incredible team, but we need to win. So,
not an incredible team, but quite a well-organized team and a difficult team to break down. And that feels like exactly what Lazio don't need right now, is coming up against a well-drilled kind of 6-man block in defense.
We have an advantage. They're playing Coppa Italia on Thursday.
Good point. I think we could see a few changes. I mean, we will definitely see, the changes in midfield. I think the attack is more. It looks more open now than it had before. Now that he's made these changes to start Dia and Pedro, to look to Noslin off the bench rather than Cancellieri, it does signal to me that Sarri is wanting to see more of what he's got rather than being stuck to the same idea in attack, which is probably a good thing, because like I said 1,000 times last season, I don't think there's a huge gap in ability between whoever is starting and whoever's on the bench in our attack, because I don't think we've got any superstars. I also don't think we've got any duds. I think they're all good players, but they're not great players. So well, maybe some of them will prove to be duds. Who knows? So you're shaking the head there. But I think everyone probably deserves a chance at this point, because the problem isn't going away. And I think Noslin might as well get a crack at it.
The quality of this team is so bad that, you have to give some bench play an opportunity, because the gap is not that big. The problem, Alasdair, is we knew that this team hadn't got the quality of the Inzaghi team or the first Sarri one. What annoys me a lot, what concerned me a lot, is that this team, some of the players aren't focused. They're looking, when I look to them playing and watching them at the stadium is different, because you can see them even when they don't have the ball on their feet. The impression is some of them would love to be somewhere else. Some of them are playing thinking of something else. Some of them are playing more focus on let's not get injured, let's not have issue, rather than hey, I have to give everything because we need to win this game. I need to be good today. And this is the problem. You're already not a great player. You're not giving your best. The result has to be terrible. There's no other result available. So I prefer a worst player, but that gives everything, rather than a superstar that is not giving his best. Even because we don't have superstars.
Yeah, no, I think it's clear that we could do with some fresh blood in January already, and like you say, that doesn't necessarily have to be a superstar, but I think just something to kind of inject a bit of enthusiasm. I hope they're working on that. I hope they have ideas. I hope they have a budget. I'm not like you. I'm not full of hope and enthusiasm about that, but yeah, gotta win in Genoa. Don't really know what else to say about that.
I finished my coffee, so it's time to wrap it up, Alistair. But I want to point something out because maybe our fans abroad didn't notice. Lotito and Fabiani have literally disappeared. When Lazio loses, they never ever show up. They never take the blame. Lotito talks only when Lazio wins. And this is an issue because I think the squad feel that the club is distant, it's far away. And in this moment, in particular, you need the club to be close, to putting pressure on the players to tell them, hey, we should be top of the league instead of bottom of the table. So this is another problem. The club is distant, and it looks to me they really don't care about this performance, about this team.
And Luis Alberto might be long gone, but he's still ready to throw a grenade in just whenever he feels like it. Interview this week saying that there's people in the club who don't understand anything about football. So you can probably guess who he's talking about there.
I think he thought you were at the club.
Well,
It's funny how he thinks very high about Iglitare. I'm surprised every time I read about that, but maybe it's because he picked him. So anyway, Alasdair, let's finish it here. I'm already enough sadness for the week. So let's hope to have some good news going forward. Maybe Vecino back, maybe some injury is less bad than we thought. Who knows? Thanks again to our listeners. We really appreciate, especially in these terrible moments. So thank you very much. Remember, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. And we're going to be back, well, obviously not Monday, as we're playing Monday night. Probably Tuesday, if Alice is not on holiday again. So take care, guys, and we'll be back next week. Cheers.